Hello, everybody. Thank you for that introduction, Michael. Um, so today, as Michael said, the topic of my talk is on deepening our practice and also some stories about my experience in starting a Sangha up here in Northwest Arkansas. So I wrote some notes for this one. Sometimes for Dharma talks, I go without notes. And sometimes I make some notes for things to talk about. And so one theme that I was kind of thinking of as I was putting together this talk was the theme of a spiritual autobiography. So I took an interesting class in master's level counseling about integrating spirituality into counseling. And as a part of that class, we wrote what was called our spiritual autobiography, which is where we go through and we write out elements of our lives that seem to have spiritual significance. This could be maybe moments where we were involved in a religious path or practice, moments where we felt connected to something greater than ourselves. So going through that list, this list of notes that I made reminded me quite a bit of that. So as I made this list, two general themes came out of this, which will come up throughout the timeline. And that's gradual progress is the first one, and small shifts. So the Buddha taught that in practicing meditation, it's important when we think of the term enlightenment and when we think of our practice, not to crave a certain experience. So we don't want to look too hard for an experience of enlightenment or an idea of what we have, of what we think enlightenment should be. The Buddha taught that in our practice, we should be like the ocean floor. So the ocean floor gradually gets deeper and deeper, and it doesn't suddenly just drop. I mean, probably in some places it does suddenly drop, but overall, we're supposed to kind of have this notion that we just gradually deepen our practice. Every day we sit and every day we practice, and we don't have a specific expectation of the outcome. We don't know exactly what could happen as a result of our spiritual practice, but we just can continue to do it with diligence and with regularity. And so I never had the idea of founding a Sangha or starting a Sangha. And so the role of serendipity is important to consider, of just not knowing what's going to happen, but being open to multiple pathways. As the Tao Te Ching also says, the best traveler has no plans. So that's kind of represents some themes as I go through this story. So the first element of what brought me to the mindfulness practice is an experience of, I was having some health issues that kind of came suddenly back in 2012. And as a way to kind of learn to deal with these, I looked up most inspirational books, most life-changing books on Google. And Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, was one that came up out of that. So I ordered that book and I started reading it. And I remembered reading the sentence, "The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the earth in the present moment." I'll say that again. The miracle is just to walk on the earth in the present moment. And I really liked that line. And when I heard that line, I thought, Thich Nhat Hanh knows something. And just the quality of reading that book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, you can feel the depth of his practice, of his mindful presence coming through the words in that book. I've read a lot of books in my life, and I just enjoy reading about a lot of different subjects and topics. And Thich Nhat Hanh's writings stand out to me as unique and special among many of the different writings that I've encountered, including Buddhist ones. And so I read The Miracle of Mindfulness, and I started to practice mindfulness. I started to sit and concentrate on my breathing. It was really hard at first, and I made a dedicated time. I remember I had a little break in between classes, so I would come home and sit in my room with the door locked for maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes and just try to keep that going. And at first it wasn't really that enjoyable. It was kind of like making myself do this, trying to get into the routine of it, and kind of expecting it to be more peaceful and more calm than it actually was. But I continued to practice. And I also did not have a daily practice at that point. So I would practice, I would make an intention to practice, but I wouldn't always meet that intention. Maybe I would practice 3 days out of the week, maybe 2 days, maybe 5 days, and it would just kind of vary, kind of depending on a mixture of convenience and a mixture of readiness to practice. So I would do that for a little while, and then I would also try out other meditation traditions. I did a few Vipassanas, which is where you go and meditate for 10 days, and you're meditating for somewhere around 13 hours per day. I tried out transcendental meditation, which involves more like mantra-focused approach. I've done some deep like holotropic breathing exercises as well to try to reach these kind of internal states of peace and calm. But overall, it just continually came back to Thich Nhat Hanh. Regardless of whatever books I read, regardless of wherever I traveled or whatever techniques I tried, it always came back to Thich Nhat Hanh's practice and just the simplicity of his teachings and the depth of the experience that he was conveying through his teachings. So I continued reading and continued traveling. I ended up back in Dallas. And when I got back to Dallas, after a period of traveling for about 9 months, in that period of traveling, I had no routine. So things were very different day to day. You didn't know what to expect. And with travel, one of the things I enjoyed was the newness that would come out every day. But one of the things that bothered me a little bit about traveling was that fact of you can't really have a routine. You can't really know what to expect. You can't really get into an exercise routine. You can't, it's hard to meditate regularly when you're always kind of moving around and planning out where you're going to go next. And so when I got back to Dallas, I started working and I gained some more stability. So I came back to my practice with much more depth. I knew what time I would be expected at work every day. So I started waking up early. And that's when my daily practice started becoming more beneficial and more distinct in my life. So after that, I looked up some local centers in Dallas about where to try to practice meditation. And I came across the Dallas Meditation Center. And one funny thing is that I looked at their website and I thought, that looks like an interesting organization, but I don't really like their website that much, so I don't really think I'll go. And so that was kind of the deal breaker for me. I was like, I won't really do that. I'll just kind of stick with my own personal practice. And ironically, a friend of mine, Theo, who you all might know from the Sangha, he texted me one day. He was a new friend, and he texted me and he said, "Have you ever been to this place, the Dallas Meditation Center?" And I said, "No, not really." He said, "Do you want to come to this thing on Tuesdays called Young Enlightened Souls, which is where the younger generation gets together and meditates?" And I said, "Sure, I'll try that out." So I ended up going, and I found that it was an extremely peaceful place to be. When I walked in the doors and saw the mats, I just saw that it was a very welcoming, grounded place. And the work I was doing was sometimes stressful and would take a lot of time out of the day. And so I remembered showing up those Tuesday nights just feeling totally exhausted and drained, and then showing up to the meditation and sitting with people and having the sharing circle and just feeling this great sense of like renewal and this mindful energy building, and feeling like that helped me to kind of go along with the rest of the week in a state of awareness and mindfulness rather than being drained. So that was one of the small shifts that I mentioned. Looking at the website, not really being sure, and then a friend kind of nudging me in that direction, saying, "Okay, I'll go for it." So from there, I enjoyed doing the Tuesday night practice with Young Enlightened Souls. And then I started coming to the Sunday Sangha, which I'm at today, currently, right now, giving a Dharma talk at. And I enjoyed the Sunday Sanghas a lot too. And that was where I met Bobby and Cornell and many of the other members that are there. Some of you are there right now, like Jan and Neil, I think I saw you back there, and Paul. And so it was nice to meet that community, and I started volunteering. So gradual progress, another step. I started volunteering doing the bells. I really enjoyed ringing that big bell that you all have in there. And that just grew until Bobby asked me to give a Dharma talk. And so somewhere around, I think it was April 2019 or so, I gave my first Dharma talk. And I remembered after giving my Dharma talk, Michael was sitting right there next to me, and he looked at me and he said, "Good job, Nick." So I said, "Okay, I think this is something I can keep doing." So I would give Dharma talks, and then not too long after that, COVID hit. And so I went through the experience of watching how the DMC responded to COVID, and transitioning onto Zoom and continuing to give Dharma talks, continuing to help out with the bells, showing up to the DMC when it was maybe just me and Bobby and Cornell, or 2 or 3 people who were facilitating it online. And there was just this really warm, like loving energy, knowing that there was so much suffering and pain happening because of COVID, and creating this channel, this YouTube channel, that really helped people to feel that sense of mindfulness, have a beneficial practice that people could do when they felt isolated and their whole lives were shaken up. And personally, for me, I think COVID really helped to develop my practice in some ways. Being isolated, being in my room, helped me to take a deeper look at myself and at my everyday life. The Tao Te Ching also says, without leaving your room, you can know the Tao. You can know the ultimate dimension without even leaving your room, without traveling to other countries. You can know the ultimate dimension. So being isolated, being stuck in my room, helped me to go deeper into my mindfulness practice in many ways. And that's something I appreciate about Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings. He talks about no mud, no lotus. Oftentimes without difficulties, we might not have an opportunity to deepen our practice. So many times difficulties can be opportunities to deepen our practice, to give it to our spiritual practice, and kind of see how we can continue to grow through these difficulties. So then in 2021, I was back and forth between Arkansas and Dallas. And then I'd heard of the 14 mindfulness trainings, and I'd even talked about it over the phone with Bobby. And she told me that it involved mentorship, and it involved, oh wait, I think I skipped a part. I took the 5 mindfulness trainings as well in 2019 in person. And then in 2021, I had heard of the Order of Interbeing and becoming an aspirant. And I talked about that with Bobby, and she shared what the 14 mindfulness trainings were about, what all it involved in terms of responsibilities, and in terms of, you have to write a letter to the Sangha, there's monthly check-ins with a mentor and things like that. And I remembered hearing that and thinking that it sounded a little bit too easy to me. That might sound strange, but I was just expecting that you had to change something significant about your life, or you had to do something that felt more like concrete, or be challenged more to do something. And I just remember thinking, I don't think I'll do that at this point. So then later on that same year, I came back to Dallas, and I thought I would check in with Bobby and just see how she was doing. We ended up meeting at Half Price Books. We went to the Buddhist section that's there. If you all haven't been to the Half Price Books off Northwest Highway in Dallas, I highly recommend it. It's a really cool place. Anyways, I met with Bobby there, and we were just looking at books, and she was talking to me about the order of interbeing. She said, "Have you considered being an aspirant yet?" And I said, I've thought about it a little bit, but I don't think I'm not that interested in it right now. And then she said, "Oh, okay, because I would like to be your mentor." I just remembered standing there, and she was looking at me, and she was smiling. And I remembered, just kind of reflected on like all the Dharma talks that I'd heard her give, and her practice, her presence being so special. And in that moment, I just thought, okay, I'll do it. I think that's a good idea. So that was another small shift, just hearing her say, "I would like to be your mentor." And then just having that kind of understanding of what she's given to the DMC, not exactly knowing where exactly it was going, but thinking in that moment, yeah, I think I can do this. So I didn't realize how significant that moment was, but I wrote the letter to the Sangha. I read that letter to the Sangha. Some of you might have been there. That was in 2021. And then I moved up to Arkansas full-time to Fayetteville. And I didn't realize at the time how special the Dallas Meditation Center was, and how much the Dallas Meditation Center brings to the community in terms of different practices, and especially Thich Nhat Hanh's practice, and especially the things that Brother Chi Sing has incorporated in terms of community building. But I got to Arkansas, and the area that I live in, they have yoga practices, they have yoga studios, but there's not really a Sangha quite like this one. So this is where it kind of transitions into my Sangha building experience. So the early days, the Sangha started in April 2022, after a period of me kind of looking around and asking where I might start the Sangha. My wife, Vivita, who actually has practiced with the DMC, with me at the DMC, and comes to my Sangha now, asked me if I had thought of doing the local public library. And I hadn't thought of that. I absolutely love the public library. If you're ever in Fayetteville, another big book place, come check out the public library. It's special. It's a really large space, and they have an extremely high number of books. I'm not doing it justice in explaining it, but I messaged the library staff and said, "Hey, I'm from the Dallas Meditation Center. Would it be possible for me to host mindfulness meditation groups there?" And I was pretty surprised. They responded with just an enthusiastic yes, definitely. Like, you can practice here, you can have your practice, just tell me what you need. And so they provided the yoga mats, they provided we sit on Mexican blankets. We don't have cushions in there. And they also print out the pamphlets as well. So I took the Dallas Meditation Center pamphlet that you'll use right now, and I adapted it. I changed some of the names. I changed some of the times. We meet for a little bit shorter time. And I bought a little bell that is maybe the size of a bowl. It's not as big as the bell you all have there. And it's one of my goals maybe in the future to save up some money or to do a fundraiser to get one of the bigger bells. But that's all in time. And I bought a little chime as well. And at that point, I was pretty much ready to go because I had already volunteered and facilitated walking meditations, facilitated sitting meditations at the DMC, and done some Dharma talks as well in the bells. And can you all hear me? Yeah, still. Okay. So I'm going to pause for a second and just take some water. So at this point, I had become an aspirant of the Order of Interbeing, and that involves each month we meet via Zoom with other aspirants of the Order of Interbeing all around the United States. There's one woman who comes on from the Netherlands, and we recite the 14 mindfulness trainings. So that happens the fourth Sunday of every month, and that helps us to deepen our practice as well. It's really inspiring to see a group of people that have been with the practice for a number of years, some of them even decades, and just see how that's influenced their lives and how that's helped them to navigate the twists and turns of life's often difficult situations. And so throughout this whole time, I had continued my daily practice as well of waking up and meditating first thing in the morning for 20 minutes to 40 minutes to an hour. Sometimes it depends on the day, but I try to sit for at least 20 minutes each day. And that's a way to kind of help to deepen my practice and to start each day out in a state of calm and centeredness. Sometimes when I wake up, there's a lot of just emotional energy going around, mental energy going around. I think there's a lot of things that happen in sleep and in dreams. There's a lot of work that gets done, a lot of residue that happens sometimes, not every day, but sometimes. So it's useful to sit first thing in the morning in meditation and just kind of bring myself back to the breath, and to recite the may all beings be happy as kind of my intention for the day. Maybe even check in with myself and ask myself, like, what can I do to work for the well-being of others today? What can I do to give something that could benefit other beings today? And that's been a really helpful way for me to start my day out. So back to the Sangha. We started the Sangha. It didn't really have a name. I started out by calling it Grateful Heart Sangha, but I wasn't really that proud of that name. So I discussed it more with my wife, Evita, who's been a great help for me in this whole Sangha building process. And eventually we came to the name Dogwood Blossom Sangha. So that's what we named it. We have a website now, dogwoodblossom.org. But in the early days, it was slow. So we had the meditation. Sometimes 2 people would show up. Sometimes 4 people would show up. Sometimes 1 person would show up. And one time, no people showed up. So I was sitting there alone in the room myself, waiting for people to come in. 10 minutes passed, and I went to the door to the person that helps me set up. And I told them, if no one comes in about 2 minutes or so, I will just go ahead and close it up, and we'll just close the meditation early today. And then I went back in the I went back in the room, and I was sitting on the cushion and just following my breath. And it just kind of came to me that actually I shouldn't end this early. I should just keep holding this space for as long as it is, regardless of whether or not anyone comes. So that's what I did. Another 5 minutes passed, another 10 minutes passed. Then suddenly there was a little knock at the door, and this lady opened the door and she asked, is this the mindfulness meditation group? And I said, yes, it is. And she came in and she sat with me, and it was just she and I meditating together. We did a little bit of walking meditation. And then during the sharing circle, she shared that, she was in a difficult spot, and that having this practice was pretty helpful for her that day. So I thought, that's pretty cool that happened. I was going to give up. I was going to leave that day, and it seems like it benefited someone. So one thing that I've learned through the practice is that notion of letting go of ideas or letting go of expectations about what things are supposed to look like. In the very beginning, when I started the Sangha, I had this expectation that it was going to be this great thing and that so many people were going to love it, that the room was just going to be packed. And that caused me to feel disappointed when only 1 or 2 people showed up. And gradually I had to let go of that notion and just be okay with whoever came in, whoever came out. Some people showed up one time and then never showed up again. Some people showed up and continued coming. And so those were the first few months of having maybe 2 to 6 people show up. Some of them regularly, some of them not so regularly. And based on the seasons, like the summertime or the academic calendar, different groups of people would come in and there could be different expectations. But then somewhere around September, I visited another meditation center, a retreat center in this area. And at the end of the half day of meditation that they have there, I announced that I have a Sangha. And something after that, like there was a critical mass of people that kept coming to the library. And so we've had somewhere between maybe 8 and 18 people coming to the Sangha pretty regularly every week. And it's been really inspiring to see that some people know who Thich Nhat Hanh is, some people don't, but many people come and they share during the sharing circle that the practice of mindfulness has helped them during difficult times in their life, during times where they may have responded or reacted to things in a much more difficult manner. They're not able to approach life with a more grounded stance. And their relationships with their spouses and their friends are deepened as well. And the Sangha becomes this kind of rock for them that they can come to and they can take refuge in, and they can enjoy the practice and the presence that emerges out of it. And that's been really inspiring to me. That's something I didn't necessarily expect, to watch this kind of gradual healing process happen through the people that come regularly, and also to see people that just come once and say, wow, I really enjoyed this, and then they don't come back again. But it's still just a really beautiful experience to be able to just hold this space where people can come. You never know who's going to show up and what's going on in their life, but they can come and have a space where there's quiet and mindfulness and awareness. And it's just a really inspiring and powerful experience. And so, let's see. So through all this, the library staff has been really helpful. There's regular members who are learning the Dharma practice, and I've started giving other people responsibility to facilitate. So we have people who do the bells, we have people who do walking meditation, we have people who are starting to give Dharma talks now. There's one guy in particular that feels really passionate about the practice, and he's starting to give Dharma talks. There's one guy that came over the summer that started coming regularly, and then he carpooled with me the 5-hour trip to the Magnolia Grove Monastery, and we grew closer through that experience. And he took the 5 mindfulness trainings there and came back. So it just keeps building. We've done half days of mindfulness on the weekend. And And at the first event that we ever held, there was me, my wife, and one other lady that comes pretty regularly. And then there was one man that showed up, and he had heard of the practice. And then a few minutes into the practice, he kind of stood up and announced that the world's going to end in 5 years anyway, so there's no point in practicing mindfulness. And he dashed off toward his car and left, and I never saw him again. And a part of me thought, like, wow, we have, one person here and the other person is kind of dashing off into Armageddon. This seems like kind of a failure that I'm putting on here. And then I kind of realized, like, there is no real failure, This is something that a Sangha is something that has no expectation. And it's not something like an academic exercise where you're trying to get an A. It's just something that I'm holding, and I'm trying to do the best that I can, and being interested in what happens and what arises. Since then, we've had many more events that went, I would say, better than that. But yeah, it's been a pretty exciting process. And so I'll just end with a couple of points here. We are doing a retreat in January. And if anyone's interested in that, please reach out to me. Let's see, I'm not sure how you all can contact me exactly. Maybe you can talk to Paul and he can get you in touch with me. But we're doing a retreat in January on Martin Luther King weekend. And Terry is coming up from Austin to give a 5 mindfulness training ceremony. So I'm pretty excited about that. And so just some takeaways from the Sangha are that it taught me the value of continuous practice. So through practicing with a group, okay, thank you for sharing in the chat. So through practicing with a group, my practice has deepened. Continuing the everyday practice is also important. Not being afraid to fail. So just trying new things, and then checking in with my mentor, Bobby, who's always been a great source of support. Has been useful. And then there's a quote that I really enjoyed that kind of captures the essence of what it means to hold and facilitate a Sangha. And that is, it's a Zen saying that talks about just a tree. So if you picture a tree is holding out its limbs and its branches, and it holds that space for the birds to come and nest. If the birds want to come and nest, the tree thinks that's great, that's fine. If the birds fly away, the tree is also okay with that. It's still just holding its limbs out and its branches for anyone who wants to come. So similarly, that's been helpful for me to see with my own Sangha that I've been running, is that some people come and they form a nest there and they really enjoy it. They want to stay, they want to keep coming and returning, and that's okay. Other people come and they try it and then they fly away to somewhere else, maybe to the Armageddon, or maybe to just another Sangha that will benefit them, or a church or something like that. Either way, I just continue to hold this space and just be grateful for whoever comes in and whoever goes, and for the opportunity to facilitate this group. I had a lot more notes than that and a lot more little tidbits. If anyone's also interested in just the practical details of how to do, the song sheets, or how to do the pamphlets or anything like that, I'd be happy to give more information about that as well. So thank you all for listening to this talk. I'll bow out, and I'm welcoming any questions or comments that you have from the talk. Thank you all for listening.